Okay, Wolf 190D back with another shipbuilding lesson as pertains to the German campaign. Now, just to give those of my followers anyway an update, I did sort of have to start a new German campaign. I'm starting this one off in 1910, so this is a total restructuring my fleet from scratch circa 1910. The reason for that is my 1890 campaign was started prior to the 1.2.7 update, and they did some alliance system restructuring. They had done some since then. And, well, needless to say, it made the alliances go crazy in my campaign. I mean, I was literally starting off a turn and I would be allied and at war with the same person at the start of the turn. So I have that campaign saved. Maybe I'll continue with it at some other point. But for now, starting a new campaign circa 1910. So I had gotten to the battle cruisers. Now, you'll notice the Germans have three battle cruiser designs, pending your tech level. This is the first of your battle cruiser lines. I really don't much care for these hulls because it's much like the large armored cruisers. Let me show you. It's got this really weird forecastle. And the Battlecruiser 3 also has that same very, very strange forecastle setup. So I do really prefer the Battlecruiser 2 hull. It's much similar to the Dreadnought 2 hull. Obviously, the hull is a lot longer, more narrow, and not to mention heavier. The maximum tonnage on this is 28,000 tons versus 27.5. So that's an update on that. Let me go ahead and get to this. So first thing I want to do, if I remember right, I think I run it down to 23.5. Because 23,000 tons, nope, it's going to be a 24,000 ton build. So, no, 24.5? There we go. I didn't want it full length, and I don't want this thing max size. Now, the thing to keep in mind with battle cruisers, they're very fast. They're very heavily armed, but they're not terribly heavily armored. So, things to keep in mind, try to avoid engagements with enemy battleships with these. These guys are kind of like your lone wolf or pair hunters. I like to use them to go out and control territory because they do get pretty good power projection. Do have turbines, do have semi-oil fuel, do have auxiliary diesels. The auxiliary engines are really nice. They improve water pumping, ship repairs. They do have a lot of bonuses. They do increase weights and engine vibrations, but they're really a good boon to have on pretty much all of your ships, particularly though the destroyers, because they do eliminate well, if your engines get destroyed, your ship can't move, and a destroyer that can't move is easy pickings. Okay, so how do I want to set this guy up again? Let me see. 24,500 ton max weight. I did notice something about the towers. You'll notice, and cost and weight considerations are always a factor. You'll notice that the advanced, no, not the main tower, the rear tower, I'm sorry. The rear tower 5, the advanced tower 5, there's a significant jump in the base accuracy between the 5 and the 6. So I'm going to utilize this rear tower 6. Not to mention it's heavier. These types of hulls. So if you're playing in this era, these types of hulls can be very, very tricky to balance out. So the added weight, I know it's only like 42 extra tons, but it's well worth it because your base accuracy more than doubles. Yeah, 7.5 doubled would be 15, and you get 16 on your base accuracy. So it's well worth it to go with shell out and get that really advanced rear tower. Now with your four decks, your four forward towers, it's not quite the same. So I'm going to peruse through these, and I think with my battle cruisers, what I had been doing, I had been going with just a 4-deck, the biggest of the 4-deck towers. All right, I'm going to plop that down. I'm going to need 2 barbettes, and I'm just setting these down for now to sort of get ahead of the game. All right, now weight considerations for casement guns. I'm going to go with 6-inch casement guns. It's working on my battleships. It gives you a good cost effectiveness as far as the weight on those is concerned, and I'm going to go ahead and max those out on their length. Longer barreled casement guns are nice, makes them more accurate. So down the road there is that to consider too. Now for funnels, particularly since these guys are lone rangers, as it were, I like to use the hyper funnels. Now the hyper funnels, you'll notice, give bonuses to your damage control. The central crane funnel you could use, but it takes up a lot of space. And just to show you what that would look like, you're really only getting one of these, and I would have to fiddle with my boilers in order to get that to work. However, the central crane funnel does give a massive boost to damage control. But I like these hyper funnels simply because they do bump your damage control stats. Okay, so let me see here. I'm going to try to jimmy these so that my engine compartment isn't terribly, well, that'll be what it'll be. Okay, and then I'm of course going to work on balancing this as we go. Some people, particularly Brother Monroe, refer to that as noodling. And you are probably going to find yourself doing that more often than not, as it relates to ship balancing. Particularly in the Dreadnought-Era is really rough because you get these really wonky hull breaks and stuff like that. All right, so for main guns, this is a battle cruiser. I personally downgun a little bit off of my battleship build. So Dreadnought-Era, I'm finding that my 12s right now are about my most cost effective main guns. So I've been using them. They're accurate, they do enough damage, and they have a really good rate of fire. Okay, so I'm gonna bump that back because we still have a really bad forward weight offset. All right. Now, sticking with keeping with the lone wolf philosophy, you want these to be able to engage pretty much anything of size and below. So, very similarly to my battleships of this era, I'm going to use the standard 6-inch on my secondary armaments. That's not going to work now, is it? Can we bump that back again? Okay, there we go. Can get that in there. Get that there, and that will go right there. Okay, so 5 twin 6-inch guns, not bad. And you know, pretty much you're going to want to set these up to pretty much annihilate any convoy escorts. So pretty much what I'm trying to do with this one is going to be to have him set up to deal with pretty much cruisers and below. Cruisers and below. And you'll note I put the speed on 28 knots. So this allows him to pretty much outrun anything else. Most cruisers at this time are going to do low 20s, 24, 25 knots. I mean, my German-built cruisers are currently set at 25 knots, my fleet cruisers anyway. So it'd have to be a really, really fast ship to run it down. And I mean, okay, if a light cruiser can run this thing down, the poor light cruiser is going to be annihilated. So really you're looking at basically hit and run tactics with these guys. Do I have room for some 2-inch just for anti-destroyer purposes, really? I always try to equip my capital ships to deal with the eventual destroyer. Destroyers are the bane of any capital ship's existence, and no, that turret does not get in the way because, well, the arc of fire is actually blocked off by that barbette anyway. So tuck a couple of those on there. Oh, and casements. Yes, casements. Let's not forget the casement guns. Okay, so 2-inch casements, max those. 2-inch guns, max those. And the 6-inch guns, do I want to fiddle with them? They are currently at 2 rounds per minute. And that's 2 rounds per minute on a double barrel, so multiply that by 2. 2 rounds per minute on a single barrel, well, you get the idea. So I don't want to fiddle with those right at the moment. Enhanced reload, oh, yeah. Advanced radio, though, do I really need that? Yeah, because typically what I've taken to doing is okay, lone wolf is fine, but at this particular area, your view range isn't going to be fantastic. So what I've taken to doing with these guys from other battle experiences is running a destroyer with them. And you're using your destroyer as a spotter, right? So your destroyer is going to be spotting for this guy. So the radio does come in handy, not to mention, as you can see, the radio also bumps your gun aiming speed. It's nice to have, Okay, so barbettes, yes, let's bump the barbettes. Let's give them best torpedo protection, best double hull, reinforced bulkheads, anti-flood, and a citadel. Now, your citadel options for this, and it depends on your budget and weight constraints. I'm going to go with a Citadel 3. That's a little bit much, isn't it? But if I drop it to a Citadel 2. Oh, let's put the best armor that we've got on him. Okay, that might allow us to put a Citadel 3 on here. Now the Citadel 3, in addition to giving you 2 inner belts, also is going to much better increase resistance, another 3% to resistance, which decreases damage taken, doubles the armor strength buff. It also is going to provide modifiers for, let me see here, flash fire. Yes, flash fire. So it's good to have. And then, of course, you can check that if you scroll down. What's the fire chance? Is 11.6 on these guys right now. That's a little bit much. I think I'll leave this on TNT. Ballistite and TNT bursting charge. We'll leave those alone for now. All right, now let's look at some particulars on shell type. So, and this is a matter I'm still sort of revolving, because some people do recommend using these more penetrating HE shells. Which, okay, if I say let's go with some soft caps and see what that does, at 5,000 meters they've become a real threat to destroyers. If you go back to nose fuse at 5,000 meters, it's still going through a 1/2 inch of armor. So it depends on what the enemy fleet is building and what you want it to do. I typically prefer the less penetrating HE shells because they're going to have a much higher chance of causing fire. Not to mention they do more damage. If you look at the 11-inch guns, those nose fuse shells are doing 690. If I drop those to soft caps, they're going down to 439. So I'm going to leave the nose fuse on, fire starting purposes among other things. And for armor piercing shells, let's see here. Let's go to standard. Standard is a good middle of the road. At 7,500 meters, you're penetrating roughly over 8 inches of armor. Roughly. Depending on their armor type, if they're using Krupp 3, if they're using Citadel 2, Citadel 3, so on and so forth, these are going to add modifiers to your actual armor values. So of course you have to keep that in mind. So 8 inches is going to be going through pretty heavy cruisers, actually. I mean, they would have to be very heavily armored heavy cruisers. And again, it depends on your engagement range too. If you want to say, okay, I want to set this up to engage at 10,000 meters, well, then you're looking at 7 3/4 roughly of armor penetration on a belt. What to do, what to do, what to do? Well, there is always the option for refits. Now, let me see here. Nose fuse. Or do I want to go with base fuse shells? Base fuse shells would be nice because then we're getting into crushing destroyers. Even at longer ranges, we're crushing destroyers. Not to mention that, as you can see on the far right there, the deck penetration has gone through the roof as well. And I mean, light cruisers even would be under threat from this thing now. So let's bump this down to standard. So let's go with base fuse. It's a pretty good. I mean, I know it's like the first high explosive shell you get, but it's still a really good one. Usually, when I get to the high capacity, high explosive shells, then I start to consider using those because I mean, those things. It's like every shot starts a fire. 1.5 inches. 1 inch of penetration at 5,000 meters with a 6-inch gun is, again, it's still really threatening to a destroyer. And it depends on your opponent's destroyer builds. So the AI is going to auto-generate unless you have gone to the shared design section and built ships for the AI, various AI nations, and you have your campaign settings to where the AI always uses your shared designs. It's kind of an interesting thought, interesting philosophy, but nonetheless. Let's see here. What if I go up to capped? Is that going to start getting into over penetration? Yeah, it really is. So standard even is a little bit much actually for what I want to do. I mean, 8 inches of penetration at 10,000 meters. Again, that's the heaviest of the heavy cruisers. Let's see what heavy shells with semi-ballistic heads do. That's 6 inches. Roughly 6 inches of penetration between 7,500 and 10,000 meters. It's kind of not enough. So let's go back to standards. Let's go back to standards. Now, I'm going to stick with the TNTs on this because, again, I don't like where the chance of fire is on this ship. It's 11.6, and they're really, you know, if you do run into fleets that have battleships in them and you get to fiddling around with it, they really can get annihilated in short order. So because they don't have enough protection. All right, so Let's see here. And that's typically what these ships are more meant for, is using them to secure convoy lines and stuff. So that is a battle tactic, especially if you have a far-flung empire. You don't want to leave a lot of gaps in your supply lines, because, well, it affects your army logistics, and then you wind up in situations where in land battles you have 1 million men that are getting their tails handed to them by 200,000 men. uh, I've had that happen. My logistics have dropped below 20%, and theirs have been at 100%. And yeah, it works out that way. I know it's ridiculous, overwhelming numbers. They don't help. It doesn't help to have numbers if you can't supply your troops. It would be like well, it would be like attacking tanks with cavalry. It is about what that amounts to. So, protection. Let me see here. I've got another 1,500 tons that we can work with. So let's armor to the guns for now. Or yeah, to the guns. Now, something I could do is reduce the belts, because 5 inches is a lot for a light cruiser to try to get through. But more armor sometimes is better than less armor. So let me see here. What's that deck at? That deck is at 3. Let's go with 5. And let's go with 2, 5 on the fore and the aft. The conning tower. I like to over armor my conning towers a little bit typically. It really does actually help. Inner deck, I'm going to leave that alone for now, but the inner belt, we'll go with 4 and 2 on the inner belts. Now, some schools of thought say, okay, you take this number, so you basically half again your main belt, and that should be your inner belt, and then you half that again, make it your inner belt. But this guy, I'm trying to keep him at 24.5. So let me see here. 2 inches on the top of the turret, 12 inches on the sides, and the barbette. This is going to be the really close call. Oh wow, look at that. Look at that. I think we're going to get this one in just... We're going to get this one just under our limitations. So 2 inches on that, and the barbettes. And the barbettes are going to be what reduces your ammunition explosions and stuff like that. So I like to try to max out the barbettes when I can. Okay, so I think that's everything. I sometimes miss things, but there again, that's where you can get into refits and stuff like that. It doesn't help when it's right off the bat, but nonetheless, there's all of that. And let me go ahead and scroll through all of these details for you as well. You can pause at any time, take a better look at it. So that is a early battle cruiser design. And like I said, your hull type and everything else is going to depend on what you want it to do. I like the Battlecruiser 2 on the German tech tree simply because, again, it's a lot more uniform. More uniform anyway. It doesn't have that really weird forecastle that can lead to some balancing and placement issues and stuff like that. All right, so as always, thank you for stopping by. Thanks for watching. And be sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. And I will see you next time.